Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Concern Podcast, where we unpack political, social, economic, and cultural stories shaping our world. I am Emmanuel Taban. Now, last Sunday, on the 14th, a delegation of South Sudanese leaders visited Sudan. They visited the leader of Sudan, that is Abdel Fattah al Burhan, and the delegation was led by South Sudan Security Advisor, Honorable Tut Gatluk, and he was accompanied by the Minister of Foreign Affairs and International Cooperation, that is Simaya Mande Kumba, and Undersecretary, the Minister of Petroleum, and other uh, technical personnel. And these were people who formed actually the delegation that went to Sudan. So they went and met the leader of Sudan, Al Burhan, and they had quite interesting discussions. And in this video, I'm going to give you some of the issues that actually were discussed in that meeting and why that meeting was a very important one for South Sudan, especially in relation to its economy and the importance of South Sudan depending mainly on oil. But before we proceed, if this is your first time watching a video on this channel, please subscribe, hit on the notification button, like, comment, share. And if the videos interest you, of course, why not share with your colleagues and your circle? It's a way of making this channel grow, and when it grows, it motivates us to make more videos back to back. And for those who have been supporting us, thank you so much. Continue doing so. We are much grateful. And back to our purpose of the video, as I said that in this video, I'm going to tell you some of the things that transpired in that meeting and why the meeting was very important. So to start with, I just want to give you a quick look of the photos that were taken during that meeting. You can see some of the pictures right here. And yes, these are the pictures that were taken during the meeting between the delegation from South Sudan, or sent by the government of South Sudan, and meeting the leader of Sudan, that is Abdel Fattah al Burhan. And during that meeting, some of the things that were discussed include: one is that the delegation from South Sudan actually presented a written message from President Salva Kiir Mayardit and to the leader of Sudan, and in that letter, there was prospects. I mean, the letter contains prospects of expanding cooperation between the two countries, South Sudan and Sudan, especially on areas to do with oil and energy and trade and the larger economy. So that letter was presented there by the delegation by the delegation of South Sudan to the leader of Sudan, Al Burhan there. And also, while in Sudan, the leaders visited some of the oil facility centers here. And we can see some of the pictures here of the delegation of South Sudan touring the oil facility center there in Port Sudan. That's the area where they actually visited. So these are some of the pictures. And also during that meeting, the delegation of South Sudan had a very, very interesting conversation with some of the oil companies that actually do the transportation of this crude oil of South Sudan from Unity State. And that is one of the things that happened during that meeting. The delegation engaged actually two major crude oil companies or oil companies while in their visit, or while they had a visit to Sudan on a Sunday. And that is also one thing that happened during that meeting. So as I said, part of this video, I'm also going to tell you why that meeting was very, very important. But before I talk about the importance of that meeting, during a press briefing given by the Minister of Foreign Affairs, he also confirmed that actually the South Sudan People's Defense Forces, the SSPDF, were deployed back to Heglik oil field. That oil field that was actually taken over by the Rapid Support Forces some days ago, and which was actually taken over from the Sudan Armed Forces. And the Minister of Foreign Affairs, or the delegation, confirmed that actually South Sudan had deployed the South Sudan People's Defense Forces back to the oil field, which is meant to actually continue a normal operation, which is going to help South Sudan a lot in terms of securing the facility right there in Heklig, which is a major oil field for the economy of South Sudan, because that's where it contains the facilities for transportation of the South Sudan crude oil to Port Sudan. Now, as I said, the reason why that meeting was very, very important, it's because one, we all know that South Sudan's economy, it's relying so much on oil. I mean, 90% of the economy relies relies on oil, and therefore having that meeting is very, very important, because one, it set out very clear uh, 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 things that South Sudan want from the oil field, and especially the fact that the Heglig oil field alone, I mean, harbors about 75 oil wells and handles about 130,000 barrels of oil from South Sudan Unity State. So that is a very important meeting, and that tells us how important Heglig oil field is, and also Sudan, because it is in Sudan that contains all the facilities that South Sudan can transport its oil to Port Sudan. So that's a very, very important meeting there, very strategic meeting done by the South Sudan government there, sending a delegation to Sudan. It's a very important one. So for those who probably don't know the reason why this meeting was actually convened, I think the meeting happened shortly after the last few weeks. There's the RSF, the Rapid Support Forces, actually took over control of the major oil field, that is the Heglig oil field that is located in Kordofan. And it's that oil field that actually, it's a very important one to South Sudan. It's very important to the economy of South Sudan, and therefore maybe the government has seen that the importance of that oil. That's why it has sent a delegation to go to Sudan to actually have a conversation over that oil field and how they can actually make a very proper redeployment of the South Sudan People's Defense Forces to secure the oil field. And that oil field is very important. As I say to you, South Sudan mainly has a very, very delicate economy that relies only on oil, and therefore you don't want to make very reckless decisions and look like you don't care when you see very prominent facilities such as the Heklig oil field is being actually taken control by the RSF, and you don't want to engage all of them. And also, one thing to remind you is that South Sudan has actually attained a tripartite agreement between the three major functions: one, the South Sudan government under Salva Kiir, and the Sudan Armed Forces under Abdel Fattah al-Burhan, but also the leader of the RSF, the Rapid Support Forces, that is Mohammed Hamdan or Hemedi. So they had these agreement that was signed by the three leaders of these places, and then they agreed that the South Sudan oil extraction or transportation will continue. That's one important thing. So thank you so much, everyone. This is an update about the meeting that happened last week on Sunday between the delegation of South Sudan sent by President Kiir and the one of the leader of Sudan, al-Burhan, that happened in Port Sudan. Thank you so much. And for those who have been following us, this is the Concern Podcast. If you haven't subscribed, please do so. Until next time, I remain Emmanuel Taban. Thank you.